Welcome back to not the NutriSave podcast, but the Nothing But Sports podcast. We are back trying something a little bit new and different. Obviously, changed the logo, changed the color scheme, all that type of stuff, changing the segments a little bit. Now we are going to release episodes consistently on Wednesday morning and Friday morning. Our goal of this podcast is going to provide a little bit of a different viewpoint. We're going to try to do a lot of deep dives on a lot of trending topics in the sports world. Try to give you a little bit of a different perspective. I hope you guys find some value in what we say. Hope you enjoy. With that being said, please like and subscribe. Feel free to let us know your thoughts in the comments. Those are greatly appreciated. It really helps the algorithm. I will start us off with a segment that we'll cover a little bit later, but I want to put it out there now, which is our question of the day. And the question of the day is, at what point is a game considered BTA? Seen it with Michael Irvin whipping out the belts, even though they beat Ole Miss only by 4. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. Right now, please let us know your thoughts on when a game is considered BTA. We will give our point, or give our takes a little bit later. Now, moving into the analysis of Super Wildcard Weekend of the NFL, the Rams survived the Panthers 34-31. Another segment we're going to start doing is our star of the game. It is who we think had the best performance of each individual game that we are going to do analysis in. Jalen Coker is our star of the game. He had 9 receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown. And even though Coker played for the loser, we're going to start with the winner. The Rams played one of their worst games all year. And they were able to pull this one out in Carolina. Watch out for these guys. I think if they play a lot better of a game against, I forget who they play, they won't look as bad as they did. Stafford didn't look clean. Obviously, you had the finger injury that didn't help him. And this game is probably the game that I thought had the most momentum swings. Every time Carolina took a lot of momentum, the Rams responded every single time. And every time Carolina would take a long drive and go score a touchdown, you knew the Rams were going to respond. And I think the experience won out for the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford being in the Super Bowl before, Sean McVay being in the Super Bowl before, and they've done it before, I think that overtook this young Carolina Panthers team. Speaking of the Panthers, guys that weren't household names really showed up. You had Jalen Coker, Ted McMillan's, he's kind of well known. Bryce Young played a great game. Horn played a great game. I believe it's Mike Jackson. He played a tremendous game. They kept targeting him, and he kept making the plays that he needed to. I thought the 4th and 2 really changed the game. It gave the Panthers, and you're sitting there watching this game, and it's 17. I believe it's 17-7 at this point, and you're like, man, this game's about to be ass. It's about to be a blowout. And then all of a sudden, you look up, and it's 17-14 going into half. You're like, holy, like, the Panthers can do this. The Panthers really could pull this one out. Bryce Young's playing a good game. They forced Stafford into a couple of turnovers. I will say, the play calling on both sides of the ball was incredibly questionable. You had prevent defense being played a lot, and allowed the Rams to drive down the field. And then when the Panthers got the ball back after the Rams went up 34-31, they were calling plays that you just didn't need to call. They were already having them run to the first down instead of do a quick little 3-yard out and just get a couple yards to give Bryce and this Panthers team to go have the opportunity to kick a field goal, especially with them playing so far off the ball. Last thing for the Rams, the Panthers, their season is over, but they had an excellent season. They were 8-9, and if we backtrack 2 years ago, this team had 2 or 3 wins almost every season. Their owner was one of the worst guys in sports, and now he's like, I believe it's Tepper. He's finally become a good guy, and this team has really started to turn things around. They've had a lot of these draft picks start working out. And so with that statement, I will bring in my buddy, my co-host, Dylan Chambers. And Dylan, first we'll start with this Panthers team. What did you think of their season and their team and their performance competing with one of the top dogs in the league?
Look, I think they took a huge step forward despite the loss. 8-9 from the outside looking in isn't really something that sounds like, oh, you should be proud of this. It's good. But compared to the rest of that division, no one thought that Tampa Bay was going to start losing as many games as they did. And for the Panthers to keep fighting, despite being, I think, 5-8 at one point, to keep fighting and to come back and win the division was impressive. Bryce Young played a lot better this season than he has at any point. Jalen Coker showed up big in the playoffs. And, again, despite the loss, I think they took a monumental step forward. And, I mean, they were going down the field and they were scoring on the Rams. The only difference was the Rams were scoring every time the momentum swung towards Carolina. I mean, the Rams were delivering in crunch time. And, I mean, it broke the hearts of all the Panthers fans, but I do think the Panthers took a big step forward. I mean, they definitely have – their fans definitely have something to look forward to, that's for sure.
And so, given how that game went, I believe Stafford was 52% completion.
Yeah.
Given all of that happened, I believe Stafford came out with a sprained thumb or sprained pointer finger, something like that. How much do you think his performance will affect the Rams going forward? They play. Who do they play?
The 49ers.
I forget who they play this week.
San Francisco.
Yeah, they play the Niners.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. No, the Niners play the Seahawks.
I know they played one of their division rivals.
No, they play the Bears. That's who they play. Jeez. It's right in front of me. But how do you think that's going to affect them, especially against the Bears defense? And we'll preview these games on Friday. But how do you think that's going to affect, especially against the Bears defense that very much lives on the takeover? Takeaway, sorry.
Look, Stafford's, I mean, let's just hope the injury's not that bad if you're wanting the Rams to win. Because I honestly think that the Bears defense can be stingy. And Stafford's going to have to minimize the mistakes that the Rams were making overall whenever they played the Panthers. The Panthers weren't supposed to score 31 points and almost win that game, and they did. The Rams are going to have to essentially just lock in and beat the Bears. I mean, Matthew Stafford he's been playing great all season. I mean, I think he's the MVP, but he's going to have to show that because he didn't really do that against the Panthers.
Moving on. What a game. And the Bears come back 15 points in the fourth quarter to win 31-27 over the Packers. Our star of the game, Dennis Allen, man. I mean, you look at the Packers drive chart in the second half. It was 3-and-out, punt, 3-and-out, touchdown, missed field goal, end of game drive. Just the defensive adjustments when the Packers had scored 21 points in the first half, it was just mind-blowing. And to force this Packers offense to look horrendous, Jordan Love, it was really a tale of two halves on the Packers offense matchup against the Bears defense matchup. And it's not like the Bears got turnovers, because that's what a lot of what they had been living and dying on this year. That's how they've won a lot of their games. They were down 21-3 at half, 21-6 going into the fourth. They were -2 in the turnover margin. They were 2 of 5 in the red zone. But the buy-in in the fight got them the win. And they were 5 of 6 in the second half, or 5 of 6 of their second half drives were scores, 3 touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns were 65-plus yard drives. And they just kept fighting. The Ben Johnson and the Ben Johnson offense and his leadership, and you see this clips after the game of screw the Packers, da-da-da-da, like this rivalry is really alive, and the Bears have been coming back in games all year, and it's kind of inexplicable because Caleb Williams has been really inconsistent in the past game. I think he was barely above 50%, and I think that's a common theme you saw this weekend in the NFL. But just the buy-in and the culture completely flipping in the Bears is just unbelievable. They ended up getting a 2 seed, winning their division, and it's just something you don't really hear of from the Bears anymore. For the Packers, I don't even know where to start. That was an unbelievable sell of this game.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the second time that they've blown a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter to the Bears in the past month.
Yeah.
Penalties were a problem. 7 penalties for 65 yards. The Bears only had 2 penalties for 5 yards. And the Packers ended the game on a ended the season on a 5-game losing streak. They lost. Granted, the Week 18 loss, that they didn't really play anyone, but it's just the lack of being prepared, it seems like, for the Packers, specifically in second halves, has really become a problem for them. Jordan Love is 1-3 in the playoffs now. And so, for the Bears, Dylan, what do you think of the buy-in, and how did they execute this comeback being down 15 points with only 15 left to go?
Well, first off, the reason they were down 15 points was all the fourth downs that they didn't convert. And I think that they're lucky that Ben Johnson's fourth down decisions didn't cost them the game. I think that the adjustments that they made were great going into halftime. Caleb Williams, he played a lot better in the second half, but he's going to have to improve his completion percentage if he wants to go in and beat the Rams this week, I think.
Right, a man, man.
All right. Moving on. Indiana delivers just splattering to Oregon, 56-22. The star of the game is Daniel Ndukwe. I think that's how you pronounce it. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, a punt block. And going into this game, if I were to tell you Friday morning that the yards were going to be 378 to 362 Oregon, probably would have never guessed this final score. Probably would have never guessed it. And so it's one of those things, and I took Oregon in this game. People know that watched the playoff prediction episode. Indiana, the difference in the game was really the turnover margin. Indiana was +4. They had 28 points off the turnovers. They had 3 touchdown drives, less than 20 yards. Or less than 25 yards, one of the two. Their defense was dominant. The stunts, the pressures, the disguises, it leaves these quarterbacks so confused. Julian Sayin had hardly taken any sacks going into the Big Ten championship. I think he had 6 going into the Big Ten championship. He had 5 sacks against Indiana. Indiana in this game had 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. On the offensive side, they were on 11-13 on third down. They dominated the rushing battle. And again, that goes back to the Indiana O-line. They just dominated. They won rushing 185-93, so they almost doubled up Oregon in rushing yards. And I got through this entire segment, and I have not mentioned Fernando Mendoza yet. And I really don't. He's played really well. I don't think he's been an incredible factor. Obviously, picking up the blitzes, making the protection adjustments, but he hasn't really had to worry about anything. It is an embarrassment of riches that Kurt Cignetti has. And Mendoza's had 8 touchdowns and 5 incompletions in the playoffs. The toughest fight they've gotten in the postseason was Ohio State. And that was a 13-10 game. And now if you're Miami kind of looking at this, you're like, what did Ohio State do? Because clearly what Oregon and Alabama didn't work. And so it's just an embarrassment of riches. This team executes on such a high level that there's almost no way to stop them, and you have to slow them down one way or another. We will break that down next week, or not next week, on Friday. And for Oregon, they just dug themselves in such a deep hole early in this game. And I think it's a completely different game. You take away the 28 points off of turnovers. Obviously, turnovers matter, of course. But that game is 28-22. So the deep hole that they dug themselves early, like going into half, it's 14-7 if Dante Moore doesn't turn the balls over. Because those were their 3 touchdown drives of less than 20, or they had 2 drives of less than 20 yards, and then the pick 6. And the pick 6 early in the game kind of set the tone for the game, and it just allowed Indiana to kind of be on cruise control after they got the second fumble and they went up 21-7.
Yeah.
And for Dan Lanning, he's still struggling to get over the hump. I kind of allude to kind of the Ryan Day hump. He's struggled with conference opponents the second time he's played them. It's the 3rd year in a row he's lost to a conference opponent the second time they play. And he keeps advancing further in the playoffs every year. In 2023, he lost in the conference championship game. Last year, he lost to Ohio State in the quarterfinals. This year, it was the quarterfinals. And then in the semis, he goes to the semis this year and then loses. So I think it's the thing of professionally developing. But Ryan Day kind of had this problem too, is he couldn't get over the SEC hump. And then he finally did last year, beat not Indiana, Texas and Tennessee. And so I think Oregon will be fine. Dan's going to have time to professionally develop. But really the main takeaway you can take away from Oregon is they would have been in this. I think they would have been competing in this game if they didn't turn the ball over. But those critical mistakes you can't allow, especially in a game of this magnitude. Indiana's too good. And last point I want to make is that not having coordinators has really been a problem for the other teams, and we'll discuss this a little more when we talk about the Ole Miss game. But
it's basically down.
Like the lack of coordinators being 100% committed, it's really hurting teams. Oregon's offense started slow. Their defense kind of started slow too. I believe they gave up a touchdown on Indiana's first drive. Their defense started slow against JMU as well. Ole Miss's offense started slow. Ohio State's offense started slow. And so you're seeing with these teams with coordinators missing, it's really hard to be 100% ready when your coordinator's trying to do 2 jobs. So with that, I will ask you, how good is this Indiana team? What do you think they did other than grab turnovers to be able to win this game and dominate the way that they did, to where the game was pretty much never in doubt after you got to the second quarter?
Well, not only did they take the ball away every time they had the opportunity to, but when they had the ball, they were extremely efficient with it. I mean, Fernando Mendoza was 17 for 20 passing. They converted essentially every major third down that mattered. I mean, they were extremely efficient with the ball. So it wasn't just a matter of getting the ball back. I mean, Oregon basically handed them, 28 points. They basically gave that to them. But the other points that Indiana scored, I mean, they were driving the ball great. So their offense definitely looks good.
All right, this is your reminder. Please like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts on the question of the day. When is a game considered BTA? And you could definitely argue that Indiana-Oregon game was definitely BTA. We will have that conversation a little bit later on. Continuing into the Sunday NFL slate, the Bills win their first road playoff game in 33 years, 27-24 over the Jags. And the star of the game, obviously Josh Allen. He was 80%. He had 273 yards, 1 touchdown, 11 carries for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Bills kind of just push their way to victory at this point. best offensive line in the league, and Josh Allen is just inevitable. And is this the year of Josh Allen? It's kind of been the talk of there's no Lamar, there's no Burrow, there's no Mahomes. Is this the year that he finally gets it done now that a lot of the elite quarterback obstacles are out of the way? You have really a bunch of young, really good quarterbacks in the league this year. But is this the year? One thing that you do worry about the Bills is they got dominated in the rushing battle. It was 154-79, and the good rush defense of the Jags beat the good rush offense, the number one rush offense in the league, in the Bills. And then the Jaguars, not great rush offense, beat the bad Bills rush defense.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a concern. Josh kind of had to do it a lot on his own. James Cook didn't really have the day we expected him to have. The turning points in the game were the fourth down. The fourth down, these critical downs, the Bills were 2 of 2 on fourth down. The Jags were 0 of 1.
Yeah.
And they won the turnover battle. They were +1. And I think that was a really big thing. Trevor's turnovers really hurt the Jags. And the takeaway is that the Jags are a really good football team. And the experience of Allen being in the playoffs before, having these really hurtful losses, and this might be the year of Josh. And the Jags were just the team in the way. I do think what that reporter giving Liam Cohen praise, great thing. We love that.
Oh my God.
Liam Cohen deserves it. He's completely flipped that culture all the way around. And they've got a lot of playmakers. They were missing Brian Thomas. I'm not sure if he was 100%. They're still missing Travis Hunter. They've got a lot of guys. And if Trevor Lawrence is truly unlocked, I think this Jags team will be a force to be reckoned with in the near future. So, I ask of you, what did the Bills do other than the fourth down? I already mentioned that, to win that game. I think the fourth down was a critical part. But what separated the Bills from the Jags in the final minute of the game?
I mean, honestly, just when they were going down the field, it's like you said, Josh Allen is inevitable. What are you going to do? And it's hard to win if you're Jacksonville whenever Josh Allen goes 28 of 35 passing. Oh, yeah, and gets tush-pushed his way to 2 touchdowns, which the 10-yard tush-push, we're not even going to talk about that. Greatest tush-push of all time. But like you were talking about, they were extremely efficient on third down, fourth down, and the Jags weren't. And I think that I don't think anyone really expected the interception. I was hoping to see Jacksonville go down the field, but that didn't happen. So I think it's the year of Josh. They're going to have to run the ball better next week against Denver if they want to win, though. That's for sure. They're not going to be able to win if they run the ball the way they did against Jacksonville this week.
There's also a lifeline to it, right? On horizon.
I can agree with that, especially against this elite Denver run defense.
Yes.
We will talk about these games on Friday. The 49ers stunned the Eagles 23-19 in Philly. The start of the game, you could argue a lot of guys in this game. It's CMC, just more based off what he's done all season. The Niners have ended up having to sacrifice a player every week to keep CMC healthy. He had 15 attempts, 48 yards, 6 receptions, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. One of those being from Jawan Jennings. And for the 49ers, and all the talk in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, is that the 49ers defense was going to be a problem. That the Niners defense isn't the same without Warner and Bosa and whoever. But the defense really bowed up when it had to. They got the fourth down stop against the Eagles in the final minute. It really bowed up. And granted, they gave up 19 to Philly, but I really do trust Philly's experience, considering Jalen Hurts has already been to 2 Super Bowls and was a Super Bowl MVP in one of them.
Right.
So And that's kind of where the trust lied for me in this game. And they won third down. They were incredibly efficient on third down. They were 6 of 11. Philly was 5 of 16. And I think the explosiveness for the Niners kind of catapulted them into this game.
Right.
It's unfortunate for the Niners that George Kittle got hurt. Although George Kittle has been hurt all year, it's really going to hurt because they're going to need that extra playmaker. But even then, I mean, they've done it all year without key players. And I don't think it's going to hurt them too much. I think they're really just going to be playing for their guys that they have lost along the way.
Yeah.
And for the Eagles, you watch that game in the first half, and you're like, wow, Philly's offense is kind of looks like they're doing it.
Yeah.
They kind of look improved. They look like they finally found that juice. And then you come out in the second half and give all the credit to Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
But their offense went cold. They had 3 3-and-outs in the second half, along with only 3 points. And obviously it was a really bad look with the drama, the A.J. Brown yelling on the sideline, kind of blowing up at Nick Sirianni. And so you have that. You have the constant complaints about Patullo. You have the really awkward Nick Sirianni quote. And it finally feels like that drama caught up to them. They had the drama last year. And then you have when they won the Super Bowl, the 2 star wide receivers dumping the Gatorade on Nick Sirianni. And so you really wondered when this drama was going to affect them because they kept winning games. They kept doing all this. And it didn't look great. Like, it hasn't looked the same as it did last year all year. But it really just did not look great. And speaking of which, lack of explosiveness and execution is going to have to change on offense. That defense was elite this year, but the lack of explosiveness and execution on offense was horrendous this year. The Eagles did fire Kevin Patullo, and it continues to be a revolving door for the Eagles at offensive coordinator. It's going to be their 5th one in 5 years. And no one really talks about this, but how hard it is for a quarterback to go through 5 different offensive coordinators and 5 different play callers in 5 years. It makes it impossible, and he dealt with that his entire college career too. No one gives Jalen Hurts credit for this, but talking more about the winner, how are the 49ers able to keep winning these big games? Granted, they lost to the Seahawks last week, whatever. But even despite being -2 in the turnover margin, how are they able to keep winning these games and keep stringing together plays with paper clips and duct tape to be able to win these big games?
Yeah, I was going to say, whatever Band-Aid they're using to hold that team together must be working. They just have to keep executing. Like, clearly Kyle Shanahan has this team in the right mindset, and they know that, like you said, they're going to be playing for the guys that they've lost up to this point. And they know that if they keep playing and make it to the NFC Championship game, Fred Warner will probably be back. So they can just win this week. They know that if they can fight one more week, beat one more good team, then there's a chance that they might not be held together by duct tape and paper clips when the Super Bowl comes around.
And I do think there is an argument for this being Kyle Shanahan's best coaching job he's ever done. I really do think there's an argument when, although they lost to the Seahawks, which kind of we're assuming, put Kyle Shanahan out of the Coach of the Year race, but I think this is the best coaching job he's done even before the playoffs. To be able to have this team winning, 12 games?
Yeah, 12 and 5.
So now 13. So it's just an impressive showing in the grit and the fight that these guys have.
Yep.
Even without Purdy, they had Mac Jones come in there and win a couple games for them.
Played great.
Without Kittle, without even Brandon Ayuk, who they just signed to a big extension. So I do think this is Shanahan's best coaching job, whether they make it to the Super Bowl or not.
Yeah, I'm fucking batting AJ.
The Patriots overwhelmed the Chargers 16-3. Star of the game is K'Lavon Chaisson. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. That forced fumble kind of sealed the game for him, if you remember.
Yeah.
The Pats, they dominated a lot of the stats in this game. They dominated the yards 381 to 207, rush yards 146 to 87, third and fourth down 5 of 12 to 2 of 13 for the Chargers. And early in this game, Herbert had time in the pocket. And something flipped in that defense where they were just all over Justin Herbert in the second half. They ended up with 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, and Justin Herbert was just getting killed back there. And I know that Chargers had a lot of offensive injuries, specifically on the offensive line. So just the way this defense was swarming the Chargers.
You pop one step.
And I will say there is something to be said because I do think Herbert had time to throw early in this game and just ended up missing guys, which is uncharacteristic for him. I think he was kind of surprised. He just kind of like stood there and was like, when is it coming? And so I think that caused them to struggle a little bit. I will say the Patriots offense is going to need to be a little bit better next week, especially with them playing the Texans. They did not execute at a high level at all. Drake May had over, I think it was 320 yards, but it didn't look great like they had done earlier in the season. I mean, you've seen them put up 40 on the Jets.
Yeah.
For the Chargers, I think it was a horrendous effort on offense from the receivers, from the offensive line to the running backs. I think Herbert was their leading rusher on offense.
Yeah.
And everything has just looked impossible to execute. Like, it felt like every time they snapped the ball, they were just going in quicksand, just falling down. And they just had no opportunity to execute anything on offense. I thought their defense played really well. I think just kind of gravity took over when the Chargers offense just couldn't do anything impressive. And for the Chargers to send out, they fired Greg Roman. I don't know if that was necessarily the problem. Chargers moved to 0-3 in the playoffs with Justin Herbert at quarterback in very infamous games for Herbert. He's gotten blown out in 2 of them, and then 27-0. They blew a 27-0 lead to the Jags. So, Dylan, for the Pats, what do you think was a bigger effect in this game? Do you think it was the secondary able to just kind of keep these Chargers receivers bottled up, or do you think it was the defensive line just swarming Herbert in the second half more specifically? And why couldn't the Chargers execute anything in the first half when Herbert did have a little bit of time in the pocket?
Well, the thing is, to answer your first question, it's definitely the pass rush, in my opinion. I think that the backup star of the game should be both pass rushes because they had both quarterbacks running for their lives on every single snap. I do think that Justin Herbert in the first half, he had time to throw, but he was just missing receivers. And even when he was hitting those receivers or getting the ball at least in a catchable range, that the defense, those defensive backs were making plays. So the Patriots just dominated on defense, on offense, especially every aspect of the game. The Patriots played better than the Chargers, and that's why they kind of crushed them.
Alrighty. Last college football game, Miami wins a thriller and arguably the best game of the weekend, 31-27 over Ole Miss. Our star of the game was Keelan Marion. He had 7 receptions, 114 yards, and 1 touchdown. A very unlikely hero. He had played well in some of the games this season, but a very unlikely hero. You heard the talk about Malachi Tony, CJ Daniels, Mark Fletcher, but he was the guy that kind of was able to break loose a lot and able to get that crucial third down converted for them. Miami, they doubled up Ole Miss in plays and time of possession. You look at those stats specifically, especially in the first half, you would have thought Ole Miss was getting blown out.
Yeah.
And the Ole Miss was able to really compete. They were 13-22 on third and fourth down. Very efficient when they weren't behind the sticks. I think most of those were when they were behind the sticks. And I do not think this was an incredible performance on offense.
Right.
They made a lot of mistakes. They had drops, penalties. Beck threw the interception, which was not that was on him. They won the rushing battle 191 to 121. I thought their pass rush very much got negated. And I thought the pass rush very much got negated. Moving to Ole Miss, they fought, even though their stats said it shouldn't have really been close. They won the sack and tackle for loss battle. They had 4 sacks, 1 tackle for loss versus 5 sacks. I'm sorry. They have 4 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. Miami had 1 of each. And I thought that they really showed the culture Pete Golding was going to have, because it kind of showed that they're fighting even though they didn't deserve to be in the game. It was a bunch of together guys, even though this team didn't really deserve to be in the game when it came to that. They scored way too quickly. They had 3 and outs, all that type of stuff. So, Dylan, why do you think Ole Miss was so effective in this game, and what put Miami over the top?
Well, Ole Miss was so effective because we talked about this. They stayed resilient. Like they were outplayed, and they definitely didn't deserve to be in that game. But I mean, they kept fighting. You know, like we saw in the NFL with the Panthers, they kept fighting and they kept going down the field and scoring. And what put Miami over the top was the fact that they were extremely efficient on the crucial third and fourth downs.
Why is this thing on my dick? Crazy.
I thought Carson Beck showed a lot of poise in this game.
Yeah.
He using his legs scored the final touchdown to win the game. I thought Carson Beck was incredibly poised in this game. Didn't do a lot through the air. He threw a couple of deep balls that looked really good. But I thought Carson Beck showed a lot of poise in this game. And moving back to Ole Miss, obviously we know that Trinidad Chan was trying to get the 6th year.
Right.
He got denied the 6th year. As of right now, the latest thing I saw is that the lawyers are planning to sue. I don't think we have any other update other than that. But if this is it for Trinidad Chambliss, what do we think about his career at Ole Miss and what he had done for that school?
I mean, I think he's played great. This year, definitely, for just to get him into the college football playoff, and I mean to go in, win a game against Georgia, and a huge game, and then to keep them in the semi. Like, they were in the game until the last play. I mean, he almost took them to the national championship, which would have gotten them farther than Jackson Dart ever got them. So, I mean, I think he definitely deserves. I mean, I would give him the 6th year. Maybe he'll get him to the national championship. You never know. That's my opinion.
I am full supporter. I love Trinidad Chambliss. He's one of the most electric players in college football.
Yeah.
And for him to be the backup, transferring from Ferris State, winning a national championship there, and then transferring from Ferris State to Ole Miss, started the season as backup. Simmons gets hurt, and he just took that opportunity to run with it.
Yeah.
I thought it was incredibly impressive. And he would be coming back to Ole Miss next year if they do grant him the eligibility. And rooting for Trinidad. I want to see him in college football next year. Moving on to the Monday night game, and the Texans just ran away in the fourth quarter against the Steelers, 30-6. Sheldon Rankins is our star of the game. 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 touchdown. And if we remember correctly, that touchdown is what put them. What did you say it was? 17-6.
Yeah, they were up 10-6. Then Aaron Rodgers got nailed, fumbled, and they went up 17-6.
And so, speaking about that defense, the defense absolutely ridiculous. They had 4 sacks, eight tackles for loss, 2 takeaways, 2 defensive touchdowns, and the Texans just dominated every statistical category in this game. They won
Okay.
passing 244 to 112, rushing 164 to 63, total yards 4 of 8 to 175, third down 10 of 15 to 2 of 14. They were 2 of 3 in the red zone. The Steelers were 0 of 2, and just dominating every facet. And this Texans defense, they're the best in the league for a reason.
Yeah.
You could have put everyone on that defense as an All-Pro.
Yeah.
And so the Texans offense I am starting to worry about because CJ's got to reel in those turnovers.
Yeah.
I think they are incredibly effective when they're not turning the ball over, but he can't turn the ball over. Luckily, that defense came in and really just took over the game, kind of just put them in such a good place to be able to win the game and move on to the next round.
Yeah.
For the Steelers, they had 3 points off 3 turnovers. You just can't do that. You can't do that in this league, in the playoffs. The defense did what it had to do to win the game. Obviously, the final score doesn't indicate that, but you take away 14 points, that's 16. No. Yeah, 16 points. That's throwing me out there. But yeah, it was 16-6 without the defense, without the defensive touchdowns. The Steelers, we kind of known who they were all year. The lack of deep threat really bit them. They couldn't get anything done running the ball. They had 63 rushing yards. And the lack of a deep threat doesn't open up space in the run game. It doesn't open up space in the quick game. I don't think Aaron completed a pass more than 10 yards, air yards down the field. So, that's a lie. More than 20 air yards down the field. Meanwhile, CJ was 3 of 4, I believe, or 2 of 3. So, and it was like the deep threat. You kind of known who the Steelers were all year. They just kind of very one-dimensional. They had to do. They're basically running the ball and doing extended run game with the quick game, with the short game, with the screens and whatnot. I think not having Darnell Washington really hurt them.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the year. Breaking news. Mike Tomlin steps down, doesn't get fired, he steps down from the Steelers, meaning he will likely have, they would have to trade for him if another team wanted him. So, and if this is it for Tomlin, hell of a run, 19 years, never had a losing season, and the Steelers are hiring their 4th coach since 1969. Which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
With that being said, I do think this is it for Aaron. I don't think Aaron's coming back without Mike Tomlin in there.
I agree.
So, Dylan, what do we think about this Texans defense with their performance in this game? And just touch on a little bit of the Tomlin and Aaron stuff as well.
Look, I mean, overall, obviously the Texans offense played all right, but their defense won them that game. Their defense stopped the Steelers every time they tried to go down the field, and they took the ball away from the Steelers, and when they took the ball away, they scored with it. So not only did the Texans dominate in every aspect of the game when you factor in the offense too, but the defense, like you said, is the best in the league for a reason. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they necessarily carried the offense, but not far from it. And to touch on the Steelers a little bit, you know, there for a while, I thought, you know, if Tomlin's the coach next year, Aaron might come back. You know, there were people saying that Aaron Rodgers was probably going to play, but no one expected him to go in and lose 30 to 6 in their home stadium. Tomlin resigned the next morning. So I look for Aaron's last pass to have been the pick six, or at the very least play for a new team, but I don't see that happening.
Which would require the Steelers to trade him because he is under contract next year. And I'll just get your overall thoughts on Wild Card Weekend, just the entire 5-day stretch of football that we got, your overall thoughts about it. You can split it up between college and NFL, but what were your overall thoughts on Wild Card Weekend?
Look, all the games were great. I mean, there wasn't one game that disappointed me. I mean, I'll say the Texans and Steelers game for the first 3 quarters, but overall, it kept me happy every single game. I think that the most electric game that I watched was probably the Bills and Jaguars or the Packers and Bears, just because the Bills and Jaguars was back and forth. Oh, I forgot about the Rams and Panthers. Never mind. The Rams and Panthers for sure. But I think that, yeah, it was definitely a great weekend of football for sure.
I can agree with that. Next weekend, we have Martin Luther King Day. We have the national championship. And I'll let you go first and get your overall thoughts on the national championship. What do you think are going to be some minor key points? And just overall thoughts about Miami being an away team, but they're playing in their home stadium. A little bit weird, but just your overall thoughts on the game and what you think is going to be a little bit of an X factor.
Honestly, I think is Miami going to be able to get pressured? That's the question. Are they going to be able to get to Fernando Mendoza, and mess with him and tackle him without actually selling out? Because, I mean, you've seen the receivers on this team. They've all played really good. Miami can't sell out, but at the same time, they're going to have to get pressure. And they're going to have to, I think they're going to have to contain Indiana's time of possession and keep the momentum going their way. Like, they can't let what happened to Oregon happen to them. Like, they're going to have to run the ball well. They're going to have to pick up first downs. They can't be turning the ball over like Oregon did, because Indiana, and we've seen it the last 2 games in a row they played, they can run away with the score. It don't matter how good your team is.
We'll say that overall, these are teams that play a very similar style. They're going to run the ball first, and then, like, if their quarterback needs to make plays, they'll let their quarterback make plays. These are teams that kind of want to do slow, methodical drives. They don't want to. They're not really in the business of going super quick like Ole Miss was.
Right.
And I would argue for Indiana that they need to push the tempo. You haven't seen them really need to do that a lot this year. You saw it at the end of the game at the Penn State game, but I think tempo really neutralized Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor in that Ole Miss game.
Well, when your defense plays as good as it did against Oregon, your offense doesn't have to worry about tempo.
Yes, but I think if you really want to take away this pressure from Miami, because I think Miami's defensive line is a little bit better than Indiana's offensive line.
Yeah.
Granted, Fernando's been really good at picking up protections, and their running backs have been great in pass pro. But I think running tempo, you have 2 good backs. You have an embarrassment of riches on this offense. I think tempo is the way to go. And everyone keeps saying this is going to be more of like a TCU-Georgia game. I don't see it like that. I really don't. I don't think the talent gap is that big.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at 4 and 5 stars, maybe, but I don't think it's that big of a disparity in like team strength that we should be considering this a game where Miami doesn't have a chance. Like, I think Indiana has earned the right to be 7.5-point favorites in this game, but not thinking this game is going to be 65-7. No. I don't think Indiana's going to dominate the offensive line. I think Miami was the best team coming into the playoffs on the trenches.
Yeah.
In the trenches. And I still maintain that point. And so for Indiana, I think they should use the tempo. They have one of the best running games in college, in the country. Right. And I do worry, because Carson Beck hasn't had to really go and win them a game. The only argument you really have is the Ole Miss final drive, which he showed a lot of poise on. But if Carson Beck's going to consistently have to throw the ball, what is the cost of that? Because you saw the cost of Carson Beck having to do what he did against Ole Miss, and that was an interception.
Yeah.
Indiana just turned over Oregon 4 times, and Oregon had hardly turned the ball over this year.
Yeah.
And Indiana does not turn the ball over. That's not a thing that happens. So I think Miami's going to have to set the tone. I think if you're Miami, you take the ball first and you try to go score a touchdown. You try to establish that run game. That way your defense knows what they're working with.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I don't really have a super great feel for the spread. The last I checked it was 7.5. But I don't really have a super great feel for the spread. But I think the key, those are going to be the key points.
I agree.
All right. Last but not least, question of the day. At what point is a game considered BTA?
One hits anything.
What point are we taking the belts out and just beating the you-know-what out of the wall? And you've seen it with Michael Irvin doing it in a 4-point game, a 10-point game that I would argue was not really BTA.
Yeah.
But what do we consider BTA? And I'll tell you, I think it's got to be at least 3 scores.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be at least 21. Because you're typically, if you're not winning by 21, you're typically not controlling the line of scrimmage. You're not bottling their receivers up. You're not negating their pass rush. You're not dominating a game unless you're typically winning by at least 21. Obviously, Oregon JMU is a little bit different. Teams slip up and they start slowing down a little bit when they get a big lead. Sometimes mental focus goes away. But I think I think we use the term wrong now because think of what BTA actually means.
Right.
You're not really bending a team over if you're only winning by 4. I just don't understand the conversation because
I agree.
Because even like the Texans against the Steelers, that was BTA. That game was pretty much dominated by the Texans the entire game. They just had the explosion of points in the fourth quarter. They were still handedly dominating yards, sacks, rushing yards, red zone, all these things. They were dominating most of that. The Patriots beating the Chargers, that was not BTA because their offense did not execute at a high level. So I think it's a very tedious conversation.
Yeah.
But I think we use the term wrong as sports fans now.
I agree.
And typically BTA only happens, obviously there's exceptions, when there's a team that is significantly outmatched. Like Rutgers playing Ohio State.
Yeah.
Georgia playing Arkansas. These type of games. Typically you don't have that. I mean, you had that when Texas Tech played Utah. Like that's a good example of teams that are kind of equal in talent. And it was just a complete domination, and the field was completely lopsided.
Yeah.
I think Utah had Texas Tech at home that game,
Yeah.
too. And the field was just completely lopsided in Texas Tech's favor. So I will ask you the same question. At what point is a game considered BTA? You can put your own rules on this because it's our podcast and we do whatever we want.
I agree with what you said. I think 21 points simply because if you're winning by 14 and a team's going down the field, there's still a chance that they win that game. But when you're up 21 points, at that point, what are the chances that this team that you're playing is going to come back and win? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know we saw it in the playoffs. I know, but at the same time, I feel like when you're up 21 points, it's 3 possessions, and at that point, you can kind of get comfortable. So I feel like I agree. I think 21 points is the threshold.
Bro, when the rankings like this, where you can just fucking drop
Now,
anywhere.
I'll say this. I don't understand Michael Irvin
Going like this, where you can drop anywhere.
every time Miami wins, but in the semis, I mean, let him have fun. His team's going to the national championship. Let him do it.
So much better.
First time Miami has been relevant in 20 plus years.
Yeah. That's what I'm
But-
saying. Let him have fun. It's not happen
And
again.
Michael Irvin is having a lot of fun with his nose candy after every game, before and after every game. But I digress. So,
Oh, no.
anything else you want to touch on?
No, not that I can think of.
Alrighty. Let us know your thoughts.
It is so.
Let us know your thoughts. What game, at what point is a game, even football game, hockey game, basketball game, whatever. We kind of just stuck with football because football was kind of the theme for today's video. Stay tuned. This will be coming out on Wednesday. Stay tuned for Friday around 10 a.m. That is when our previews for the NFL divisional round and the finished NFL playoff predictions. We'll have national championship review, and we're really going to try to do a deep dive on all of this, so really stay tuned for that.
I think a double hit thing.
Please like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. God bless.